Hi guys, Herbalist40 here, welcome back. I do apologise first of all for the massive delay. Those of you who watched my last video know that I was in England for about a week. Trip got delayed, all sorts of things. I did have a good time nonetheless. Yeah, I did have fun out there. Had quite a few drinks, quite a few smokes, quite a few gambles and all sorts. So yeah, I've had a good time, I'm fresh. And as promised, we're going to follow up with the Deciphering of Lost. As I said in my last episode, that was the trailer part A, and basically we're going to be looking at the trailer part B now. And depending on how long it takes me to get through this episode, I might include episode 3 and possibly episode 4, depending on how much information I have to bring forward. So anyway, other than that, sorry for the delay once more, but I'm home now. I haven't got much to do as far as I know, so it should all be good for quite a few videos to come. So anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so we're in the second episode of Lost, Season 1. We're taking a look here at the incident on the plane, basically, where it all started to go wrong. We're 2 minutes in, and we're with Charlie, who I think I pointed out in the last episode. Charlie's a heroin addict. He's also a musician in a kind of English punk rock style band. Very similar to the musical influence Grand Theft Auto's always had with Love Fist and bands like that, and how they keep coming back in different ways. But I'm not going to get into that right now. I just want you to take note of what actually goes on in this scene. Right. Now, I don't really want you to pay attention to the fasten seatbelt sign. It's more the no smoking sign. Now, this is something that's bothered me since the first time I went to the bunker in Zancudo. Now, I'm not necessarily linking the two together, but the no smoking, the little no smoking panel that's actually inside the bunker has always intrigued me. It's a little bit physical to my taste, but still I find it interesting how this particular sign shows up a couple of times in this scene. So we're going to see it again here. It's very quick. There. Right, I missed it, I'm afraid. I'll try and catch it again one more time, but it's not that easy to do. Let's give it a go. Live. I missed it, but it's right behind her head basically, and it's exactly the same standard little no smoking sign that we can see in rare areas in the game. It's not exactly plastered all over the place. And notably, the one place that kind of stood out to me was obviously Fort Zancudo. So I've taken the trouble of pausing this particular scene here. It's straight after the seatbelt light comes on, and it's behind this dude's shoulder, and it's the logo that I showed you in the first video. Now it kind of looks like a sun, an eye in different sorts of ways, but I know it's logical that we would see the logo on the inside of the plane, but I'm going to show you in the episodes to come that this is here for a very important reason. This logo was put there on purpose, and this logo, or this glyph, or whatever you want to call it, is one of two things that I know for certain GTA 5 based, or Rockstar North based GTA 5 on Lost. I can prove it, and we will get to it, but all in due course. Right, so this is shortly after the plane crashes, and the scene is with Claire, the pregnant girl, and I can't remember her name right now, but it's not too relevant at this minute. But basically right here she has a necklace. I'll show you quickly on my laptop to give you a better image. I can't actually get it any bigger than it actually shows here. But this is basically the Chinese symbol for love. Now I'm bringing this up for two reasons. The first reason being is that Bry, I had a conversation with him the other day, and he asked me if Lost had a lot to do with love, and I said to him straight away that yes, it really does. And whether you would like to admit it or not, the game that we're playing and the mystery that we're trying to solve also has a lot to do with love. Now, love comes in many shapes and sizes. Don't just assume that it's a romantic story, for example. There are many other aspects to be taken into consideration. For example, this one is just speculation, don't take it as fact, but in my opinion, if you look at Michael and Franklin, or even Michael and Trevor, there's a certain form of bond of love between them. And there's also a lot of other aspects that are going to touch that sort of subject, but I'm going to try and leave that to Bry, because from what he told me, he seems to be on the right track. But anyway, I wanted to bring up that this particular symbol is a symbol of love, and I said there was a second reason I'm bringing this to you, is because the images that Jack Treehorn has been bringing to light through Photoshop, which kind of distinguish them quite well. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the city on one of the walls I found this particular symbol hidden in the same way the images are on the cable car house at the top of Mount Chiliad. I might have a screenshot of it, and if not, I will take a while to try and locate it again, and when I do, I'll have a word with Treehorn to see if he can bring it up in a clear perspective. But anyway, we're going to have to move on. We can't spend too long on one thing. Right, next up here we have Walt. Now, Walt, I can't say too much just yet because I'm going to try and give you stuff as it comes along, but all I'm going to say for now is in episode 1 of Deciphering Lost, I showed you the Labrador. Now, about this Labrador, and about Walt and about Franklin, I don't want to go too into depth because I want to wait until those episodes come, but basically we'll learn a little bit more about how Walt has psychic powers, or certain forms of psychic powers, and we can also see here that Vincent, the dog, is Walt's, and he keeps running away. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to play out in the series further than what I've seen so far, but I just want to draw your attention to it and certain similarities about what clothing Walt has right now, and certain things that, if I'm correct, we can get for Franklin. Now, just bear this in mind. As I said, I do want to point out as much as I possibly can. Now, what's interesting here, the guy you're looking at is in fact Walt's dad, and Walt's dad is called Michael. Now, I'm going to have to come back to this quite a lot in the episodes to come, but just for now I'm going to say that as a child Walt was separated from Michael. They didn't live together, and this was because of Walt's mother. I've heard a few different theories as to who Franklin's father may be. I've heard some very good ones and some that could in fact correlate with what I'm bringing to you now. It's not in your face material, but it is definitely worth keeping an eye on. So I just wanted to point out that here, at this point in time, when they're on the island, is basically, I'm not going to give you the background story for now, I'll give it when we come to it, but basically they've only just got back together, like Michael and his son Walt. Since Walt was a baby, Michael pretty much hasn't seen him up until now. Okay, so I'm going to let you watch this short scene real quick.
Found the transceiver, but it's not working. Can anybody help?
Yes, I might be able to.
Oh, great.
Okay. So as she said, they found the transceiver, but it's not working. This is something that's going to be relevant for at least the first 2 seasons of the series. It's important for a few different reasons. We've been looking a lot into frequencies. It's not quite the same scenario here, but I am going to say that in Trevor's van we do have a transceiver, a radio that picks up certain frequencies that some would consider bizarre, myself included. something that I think the majority of us agree upon. We can't exclude that. It is something that we need to pay attention to. I'm not going to take the time to show you the game footage right now. One, because I've delayed it enough, and two, because I'm at some point going to have to come back to all the most relevant things that I'm bringing you now, and when I do come to that, that's when I'll compare certain things to certain gameplay images or gameplay footage. But for now, we're just really going to stick our noses into the series just to see all the elements that we can catch, because I think it's quite lucky that Wispy brought us back to this, because so many elements correlate, yet here for some reason, to me at least, they seem more understandable. Maybe it's because of the fact that the more I see in the game and the more I see here, the clearer it becomes, because I'm seeing two aspects of the same thing. But I don't know, it just feels to me that the way Lost is played out is a little bit more understandable than the way they've hidden these things in Grand Theft Auto. Now, because Netflix is a pain in the arse, what I want to show you is right here, and I don't think there's a scene where I can get it any higher. But basically this is Hurley, and Hurley's a very interesting character. Sorry about all the vibrating, shit's kicking off on the YouTube channel, some moron Bradshaw or something, I don't know, some fuckwit's pissing around, doing my head in. I do apologise about that. Unfortunately I can't stop the vibration. It's that or a ringtone. Anyway, coming back to Hurley, the shirt that he is wearing is an Eco shirt, or I don't know if you pronounce it Echo, but basically the logo of this particular shirt is a rhino. Now usually in TV shows like this, and especially in early pilot episodes, they don't actually feature any main brands like that so clearly, but basically, I know you can't see it, but it is there. If you just Google it, I think it's Eco, E-C-H-O or E-C-K-O, one or the other, and the colour behind the white rhino is this orange here. Now the rhino is something as well that we haven't necessarily spoken about a lot, but it is something that has been brought up here and there, so again, just pointing out certain facts while I come across them. Right, so again here we're going to watch a quick scene.
So we're not picking up the signal.
Why do we need to pick up a signal? Right? We're trying to send one?
Yes, but what you want to see here is little bars. The bars would show the radio is getting reception.
We need the bars.
Okay, so as you heard, or at least I hope you heard, it's not too loud. I'll put it up for future scenes. I'll turn it up a little bit. But basically he says what you want to see here are little bars. Now this is kind of one of my personal theories that I'm running with for a second here, for those of you who might want to look into it or connect it to other things. The Epsilon mission, where we get given that weird little device that kind of looks like a walkie-talkie in shape, just a little bit modified, it does actually show bars. Now what's coming up next is going to complete what I believe to be a little theory. When and where to apply the theory I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there while we're on the subject.
Could broadcast blind. Hope that someone, maybe a ship somewhere, picks up our distress call. But that would be a waste of the battery, which might not last long.
Okay, so he says, but that could be a waste of the battery, which could not last for long. Now, I know that that one in the Epsilon mission doesn't have a battery, but the mission does have a limit to it, so we're not entitled to have that item for quite as long as we might want to. What he says next, just listen up.
There is one thing we could try.
What?
Seeing if we can get a signal from high ground.
How high?
Basically, she says how high, and he looks to the highest point he can find. I know we don't have many jungles or any forest areas in Grand Theft Auto 5, but what we do have are mountaintops. Now, I'd like to just say here that I think the theory has been tried out, but I will be trying it out for myself. It might be worthwhile during a playthrough in that particular mission trying to get that remote to higher ground, as he states here, because I do believe it could be correlated. I could be completely wrong as well, so if your mind's playing a little bit of doubt on you on this one, you don't have to follow up on it. I'm not encouraging anyone to go and do the work for me, but I find it very interesting nonetheless. Right, so here is going to be the first scene in relation to comics in Lost. Now, before you think I'm going off track here, we do have a lot of trace of comics and animated style cartoons in Grand Theft Auto, but notably here it's going to be the polar bear in this comic. The comic belongs to Walt, the little kid I showed you earlier, the owner of the dog Vincent and Michael's son. And in this comic here you can see pretty gnarly looking polar bear. Just pointing it out for now, you will see soon why I chose to do that. But what is interesting about the comic, as it turns to the second page here, you can actually see that it is in Spanish. Now, languages and different countries have become more and more interesting to me as far as Grand Theft Auto is concerned, notably due to the fact in the movie Capolavoro they actually speak a multitude of different languages, and it's usually one character speaks one language and the other speaks another, mostly French and Spanish and things like that. Now, for the minute, I just want you to bear in mind Spanish and French, and again, like as I review the episodes with you, a lot of little things that I point out now that are just little, I'm putting them out there so that when I get to the bigger side of it, it makes more sense to you at that point in time. Which also I'll point out now, these episodes are going to have numbers to them so that you guys can basically follow them in order. If you're looking at episode 2 or 3 or whatever you're going to be looking at, you want to make sure you've seen 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. You're not going to understand much otherwise. Okay, also in episode 1 I showed you that on Charlie's right hand here he wrote fate on the tape on his hands. That is going to be relevant. We are going to have to come back to that in another episode that's soon to come. Well, not necessarily soon to come, but yeah, pretty much midway through the series we will be coming back to this. But for now, I want you to focus on this, one of his rings on his right hand, and that would be a crescent moon with what I would interpret as being either the sun with rays coming behind it. You can't see it too clearly, but if I can show you, like basically here, there is like a little circle behind the moon where these dots could be sun rays basically, and the moon or crescent moon going in front of it. This could have many symbolic interpretations to it. I will look into what it does mean, because I found one thing out about Lost is a lot of people have researched this series as far as symbolism goes, and it has quite a lot of secrets to share. But for now, I just want to point out this is obviously something that's going to be interesting to us with all the astrology and things like that we've been looking into so far. Now, this guy is called Boone. He is the chick's brother that I showed you earlier, and I said I couldn't remember her name. I still can't remember her name. I'll look it up in a minute. But basically, Boone's necklaces are going to be a little bit important. One, because some of them lead to the love aspect of things. But what I showed in one of my videos, I can't remember what one it was, is that the square or the cube is representative of the prison that we've been trapped in, which is the world we live in since the day that Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit. Now, we're going to look into Boone when the time comes, when his character shows a little bit more interest, but for now I just want you to pay attention to the fact that he has got a square or cube as a necklace. Okay, so this is going to be the first scene where Walt meets Locke. I think I called him Loke in the first episode I made. It's in fact Locke, that's my bad. Basically here he's playing a game and Walt asks him if the game is like checkers. Now, I hope I don't get in trouble for showing you all this shit, but basically, I just want you to check out this scene because it is very interesting and it does correlate to a lot of things I've been saying since I started my channel.
Cannon's the oldest game in the world. Archaeologists found sets when they excavated the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia. 5,000 years old. That's older than Jesus Christ.
Did they have dice and stuff?
But theirs weren't made of plastic, their dice were made of bones.
Cool.
2 players, 2 sides. One is light, one is dark.
Now, I correlated Walt in a small way to Franklin earlier, and as Locke is showing him now, as showing Walt, basically he's showing him that there's 2 paths, one is light, one is dark, i.e. one is good, one is bad, and Franklin also has the option to interact with Michael and Trevor, which could also correlate a little bit further as to why I think Walt could be highly connected to Franklin and the creation of Franklin's character in the first place. And I'm sorry for the noise, but basically the reason I showed you the polar bear in the comic is because there are in fact polar bears on this tropical desert island. Not desert, just tropical island basically, rainforest / tropical island. So as they're seeing here, that it is in fact a polar bear.
It's a polar bear.
And she even says it herself.
There's no transmission.
Shut up!
The rescue party has to be. It's French! The French are coming! I've never been so happy to hear the French!
I never took French. What is she saying?
Does anyone speak French? She does.
No, I don't. What?
What the hell are you talking about? You spent a year in Paris!
Drinking!
Now, this is going to be something very important that we will be coming back to in the near future. Obviously, as I said, I keep trying to keep it in order, but I mentioned earlier briefly that languages and origins are going to have a little bit of importance in what I'm going to be getting into, and notably French. Now, they've made their way to higher ground, and they're trying out the radio that I showed you earlier, and there's a frequency coming through. Now, these are all things that experienced hunters are all familiar with when it comes down to frequencies, radios, receptors and transceivers, and all these things are elements that we've looked into, but we don't necessarily understand why we're looking into them. This could be a clear answer that they are of importance and that we do have to manipulate them in certain ways.
It's
repeating.
She's fine. What? It's a loop. Iteration. It's repeating the same message. It's a counter. The next number will end 533. Does anyone know what the hell he's talking about? It's a running count of the number of times the message is repeated.
Right, so as he says, the message is on a loop. It's the same message being repeated over and over again. Now, the only area they're getting this from is on the island. He actually says that the message is being transmitted from not far away because of the strength of the signal. I think I'm going to stop it here for today's episode. I'm just going to quickly double check the last couple of minutes, and if there's nothing else to show, I'm going to leave it here because I know for a fact that what I'm going to bring tomorrow, and I promise it will be tomorrow, I won't delay it any further than that, will be quite a lot to take in. So I think it's probably best if I leave it at just this episode for the pilots, and tomorrow I'm going to start grouping a few episodes together with some much bigger connections, because believe it or not, this is just kind of scratching the surface of what's to come. Okie dokie people, so for today that is going to be it from me. I'm actually fucking knackered from all the travelling and that. I know it doesn't seem like much, but when your project gets delayed and that you end up having to spend a night in a town you didn't want to spend a night in before you can actually just go home and kick back, relax and make a video, it kind of complicates stuff. So I'm going to leave it at that for tonight, and I promise I will be back tomorrow with something really cool for you guys, really interesting, and hopefully helpful to a lot of you. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's content nonetheless, even though I wasn't in the best of shape. But anyway, not to worry, I'll catch you tomorrow, and as usual guys, take it easy and see ya.